I suppose so. I want to welcome you to the last day of the conference for the speakers. It's not the last day of the conference. There will be other activities as of tomorrow. We'll be going to the pyramid, and after that there will be some other activities. But this is the last day of the speakers, and the last speaker is a very good friend of mine who I appreciate very much his input and help in the past, James Arthur. James Arthur is an ethnomycologist. I'm not saying that correctly, but I'll let him explain it to you better. In the ancient world, herbs and spices and medical things that we use today were being developed and given to us, the knowledge of which was being given to us by the ancients, and we make use of them today. Among those ancient herbs and ancient remedies were mushrooms. Mushrooms were used in the ancient, around the world actually, to help open certain parts of the mind to spiritual experiences. This has been known in the Hebrew culture, even in the original Christian cultures. There were the use of mushrooms, the magic mushroom. And in point of fact, there was nothing in fact wrong with this use when controlled use and for the right purposes. James has a far more deeper understanding and knowledge of this. I brought this out on one of my videotapes in passing of the mushroom and how it was used, and he contacted me and began to give me a lot of good information from that point on. So that's how James and I come to know each other. And so I think without further ado, I would recommend that you listen closely to some of the most interesting material you're ever going to hear on how the mind can be manipulated and opened by the use of the mushroom. James Arthur, the mushroom man.
Welcome. Wow. Welcome. Let me try that again. Wow. Okay. Well, it sure is great to be here. I know everybody's enjoying themselves, and I, for one, am definitely. Okay, I wanted to start off by reading something from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is going to be, this stuff is all going to come up later in this discussion, but I wanted to read this first just so you get an idea beforehand of where we're going afterhand. This is from the Papyrus of Ani. He thirsts not, nor hungers, nor is sad. He eats the bread of Ra, and drinks what he drinks daily. And his bread also is that which is the word of Keb, and that which comes forth from the mouths of the gods. He eats what the gods eat. He drinks what they drink. He lives as they live, and dwells where they dwell. All the gods give him their food, that he may not die. Not only does he eat and drink of their food, but he wears the apparel which they wear, the white linen and sandals. He is clothed in white, and he goes to the great lake in the midst of the fields of offerings, whereupon the great gods sit. And these great and never-failing gods give unto him to eat of the tree of life, of which they themselves do eat. Now, the tree of life is in nearly every religion that we know of. And there's a reason for that. The reason for that is that it comes from the oldest religion, and it comes forward as people borrow and borrow and borrow the ideas and the doctrines from those and change them to say what they want them to say and create their own new religion for their own people. They take the name of the god and they change it. It's like Horus. Horus is the same person only in a different time scale. We know this by the ideals of the mythologies. Horus is the same person as Jesus. Horus is the same person as Mithra. Horus is the same person as Krishna. And it goes on and on and on, all throughout time. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take us back through time. I'm going to start with where we're at right now on the planet, and what type of religious icons we have to deal with here. Then I'm going to explain what is behind the scenes of this whole thing and where the hidden symbolism leads us into this very topic. The gods give us to eat of their food. And then we're going to talk about what that food does and how it affects us and what we can use that food for. The first thing I want to talk about, though, is the way we come to even know about this. Is back in the 30s and the 40s, there were people that started studying ancient scriptures, and they started looking at the scriptures, and they were doing something that hadn't really been done before. And they're looking at it and they're saying, hey, this says you can eat this food, and this is how you attain enlightenment. It says right here, Jesus says, take and eat, this is my body. What's he talking about? You know, what does he mean by that? Is he saying, I want you, all my followers, to become cannibals? Take a bite right now. I'm ready to die. Chomp on me? No, it's not saying that. And then there's other people that are of the idea that he was talking about human sacrifice, and they talk about eating the flesh of the god. They're talking about eating human flesh and drinking human blood. And now all of a sudden we're talking about a cannibalistic cult that's eating that. Well, as far as I know, of course I've never done it, but eating somebody's body or drinking their blood is not going to take you into some high celestial realm of the heavens and give you communications with the gods. It's not going to happen. We know we eat turkey, we eat beef, we eat pork. It's not that much different than us, and we're not teleported into multidimensionality, and this great thing happens to us. So what they're talking about when they're talking about eating the flesh and drinking the blood, it has to be something else. It's symbolic. When we go back through time and we start to realize what these symbols were, what they meant, what they were talking about, then we start to realize where the hidden truth lies. And that's exactly what I'm saying this is. This is hidden truth. Now, when these people started studying the religious culture of Central America, and namely I'm talking about Gordon Wasson here, because I met Gordon Wasson when I was real young. And I had just barely started looking into all this stuff when I ran into the guy that was the world's leading expert in it, And so he was a big influence in my life, and I was really, really interested in it. All of a sudden, I'm not just a kid smoking pot in my garage reading books. All of a sudden, I'm realizing there's something going on here. He's talking about ancient practices of these people in Central America that were building the pyramids and carving granite stones that were eating mushrooms. What? They're eating mushrooms? There's mushroom icon and symbolism all over in the writing. The names of the gods are mushrooms. They have words for the mushrooms that mean the god, the flesh of the god, the blood of the god. And all of a sudden I started going, oh, okay, Now we're talking about the same thing that I remember from here about years ago in my Sunday school class that's telling me there's a sacramental substance. Here, eat this piece of bread. And I'm eating the piece of bread and I'm drinking the water, and they're saying hocus pocus, hope it don't poke us in the eye, and abracadabra, now this is Jesus' body, And so I'm going, well, all of a sudden I'm realizing that the flesh of the god and the blood of the god, everything that I'd read about and studied when I was a kid in symbolism, all of a sudden has a real meaning in ancient culture. And so I'm just blown away. I'm blown away. And I meet this guy, and I go up to San Francisco, and I'm introduced by the president of the San Francisco Mycological Society, and I'm just going, wow, this is profound. So, this was a major change in my life, and this happened when I was 16, 17 years old. I'm pretty old now. I've been studying this a long time. But it's fun and it's interesting. And what's really strange is that my primary basis of understanding was Christianity. And I studied it heavily and in depth. I was a priest. I was an ordained priest when I was real young. And as I started to study other things, it opened my eyes to the whole political area of all this. And when I started to recognize the politics of it, then I started to realize why we're eating a piece of bread and drinking a cup of water, and they're saying abracadabra, and it's supposed to be the flesh of God. Yeah. Well, the politics behind it don't want us to know what the real flesh is. That's why the Catholic Church created what they call the doctrine of transubstantiation. That's whereby the priest can say hocus pocus, poof, whatever you want to say, and the bread turns into the flesh of God, and you eat it, and you have this mystical experience. Well, I don't know anyone that's ever done it. And they also tell you, oh, well, gee, it didn't happen to you? Well, there must be something wrong with you. You're not worthy. How come it's not happening to you? Gee, it must be you. Never telling you that, oh, yeah, well, by the way, you know, we substituted. It's not the real thing. This is a placebo. Hello? Eat the placebo. How come nothing's happening to you? Oh, it must be your fault. You know? It's just crazy, you know? And you start to realize that there is politics behind this that don't want you to know about this. They don't want you to know because they don't want you to have direct access. The Gnostics talked about direct access to God through your mind, through your spirit, through your soul, through your ability to contact directly the higher beings, for you to birth the God within yourself. Like Lloyd Pye was talking about, your brain is only 10%, and sorry, there's nothing you can do about it. Period. Well, I'm here to tell you that shamanistic cultures for thousands of years have been using these plant entheogens to produce the next generation of shamans. They use these plant entheogens in the womb. They use these plant entheogens when they're children. And all through their life, they're raised with these plant entheogens, and there is nothing wrong with that. These things, through the course of all of human history, have a relationship to us that is a relationship that's like nothing else. Nothing else. Our brains maybe only work at 10%, 10% right now. Well, that's because maybe it's supposed to be like that, maybe. You know, maybe like people say that you're supposed to only use 10%, and that's because we're kept as slaves. Well, I have no problem with thinking that, yeah, there's races that have wanted to enslave us. I have no problem with that. But I do have a problem with the fact that we have access to things, chemicals, plants, that have all throughout human history been told that we have direct access with God, higher states of consciousness, and that's a key, higher states of consciousness. Expanded states of consciousness. Now, what these things do is they open your brain into a different realm. They access multidimensional doorways. They create different neural pathways inside your electrical, chemical functioning of your brain. Well, anyway, when they discovered these mushrooms in Mexico, and the same guy discovered the soma, which was the ancient Hindu plant god, was a mushroom that primarily they knew about coming from Siberia. Well, the funny thing happened. An article came out in Life magazine and told about, it was called Sacred Journeys Part 3, I think, the discovery of strange mushrooms that produce religious visions. And this is on the cover of Life magazine. 1957, I think it was May 20th. Well, all of a sudden, this sparked some interest from some of the wrong people. And by wrong people, I mean the CIA, OSS, all those alphabet soup organizations that are not out there to try to help us do anything. If anything, they're all about just trying to keep us down and control us. Well, remember these guys that are all just wanting to control us and keep us down and only giving us 10% of our brain functions? Well, they're all the same people, aren't they? It's all the same attitude. Keep those people down. Don't let them find out anything. Make them stupid. Keep them stupid. Keep them in the dark. Don't tell them anything. Just as long as they go to work, come home, sit on their couch, watch their TV, go to bed, get up and go to work, come home and blah, 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 blah. Well, as long as they're a productive member of society, they don't need to know about any of this stuff. Well, on the second expedition that they went down, the first time they went down, they got in contact with a shaman lady named Maria Sabina. And Maria Sabina gave Gordon Wasson and a couple of his other friends, gave them the mushrooms, and they went into a hut, and they had the psychedelic experience. And they were so blown away that they came back and they just went, oh, man, hello, everybody. We need to think about this. This was something that was way beyond anything that we can possibly have by sitting in the corner for days or staring at a wall in a cave for 20 years. It's something that is it's just incredible. It's indescribable. And so the article came out, said this is really great. This is really interesting. Glory be, we've found something wonderful. You know, I mean, and this is the attitude that where is that attitude now? It's hello, we've found this stuff that for thousands of years have been giving people insight and expanded consciousness, and wow, aren't we lucky? Isn't this great? Look, wow, look at these mushrooms, look what they do. These come from the dung of a cow. Oh, maybe it's bad then? No. Look at the cow mythology. The cows are holy in India. Why do you think they're holy? Is it because we eat the cow and we get enlightenment from the cow flesh? No. But I bet you if that was the case, they would be considered holy. If we could eat a steak and all of a sudden, bang, we're teleported into multidimensionality and we think we're talking to God, those cows would be holy. Well, they are holy. There's another reason, though. It's because of what they produce. Karina was saying the other day, Hathor is the generous. She's generous. She's the boon bestowing. It's the magical substance. It's right there. Why is the cow holy? I'm telling you, I think that's why. In India, they're holy. Here, Hathor, holy cow. You know? I mean, that wasn't planned either. That's an accidental one. That's really good. I'll have to remember that. Let's see. Okay, so anyway, the CIA has some guys contact Gordon Wasson, and they say, hey, we want to pay for another expedition down there. And he goes, oh, really? You know, yeah, we're really interested, you know. Gee, the religious implications are incredible, you know. Wow, you know, we're really interested. And he's going, really? Wow, man, so am I. You know, this is great. We think alike. What's happening? Well, unfortunately, the guy's name was James Moore, and he was a CIA implant. And he worked for a project that was called Operation Artichoke, CIA, mind control. Same basic group that put together Operation Paperclip, that brought all the Nazi scientists over here. Why did they bring the Nazi scientists over here? Because they wanted their research. They put them directly to work for the OSS and the CIA. I mean, our government wants to know how they can control people, and they want to know to a serious extent. They don't want to just have sort of control. They want to have absolute, total control. And Operation Artichoke was an operation where they were looking for, they'd heard about certain chemicals that were available in Haiti and other places that turn people into zombies. Yeah, we're the country. We're the ones that want to turn all of our people into zombies. Well, that's why they called it Operation Artichoke. They were looking for a plant that would allow them to control people's minds, and they wanted to give it to everybody so they could control everybody. Well, that's why through a fixed, covert corporation, they funded Gordon Wasson for his second expedition to Central America. And they went down and saw Maria Sabina again. Well, they went down, did the same thing, got the mushrooms, met with Maria Sabina, went into the hut, took the mushrooms, and a funny thing happened. James Moore flipped out. He had a bad trip. Why do you think that is? Isn't that interesting? People talk about bad trips. I can see why this guy would be on a bad trip. I mean, he's working for an organization that's using Nazi scientists to try to control people's brains, and he's using people that are studying seriously religion to take him down to Central America and give him some mushrooms that he wants to use as mind control, and all of a sudden, kaboom, reality hits him, and he's looking at himself because it's an introspective thing, and kablam, he's on a bad trip. Well, surprise, surprise. So he takes the mushrooms back, takes them back, would never ever do them again, wanted nothing to do with it. So anyway, the CIA tried using the psilocybin mushrooms for their mind control experiments. Didn't work. Can't do it. Won't happen. Albert Hoffman had invented LSD, which provided to be a much more useful thing for mind control. And so then they changed the operation from Operation Artichoke to Operation MK Ultra. MK meaning mind control, like the Russian type control. Yeah, control, mind's control. So anyway, and you know, before I go any farther, I want to explain how the CIA's mind control project works, because this is important for people to understand, and it's important for you to understand as far as your consciousness works too, which we're going to be talking about in a little while. Basically, what they found out is that they could use the LSD to accelerate all of their tactics that they called trauma-based, which means that it's like the good guy, bad guy tactic. They would come into a room, one guy had come in or two people had come in, and they'd beat the hell out of you. Beat you up. Scream at you, yell at you for hours and hours and hours, and to the point of, you know, to the point of death or the point of near death. And then those guys would leave the room and they'd send another guy in. Another guy would come in and be real nice. Hey, you know, how's it going? Oh, what do you think? They beat the hell out. They did this. You know. Well, gee, that's too bad, man. It really sucks. I know it's really bad being here. It's a tough break. You got to be here, but you know, I'll try to help you out. I'll try to, you know, is there anything you need? You know, what are we going to do? Well, then that person would leave. All of a sudden, bam, bam, bam on the door. Here come the other guys again. Trauma. Torture. What this causes is a phenomenon in the brain that's called compartmentalization. Compartmentalization of consciousness. It's where the person cannot stand so badly what's happened to them that they go back in their mind. They hide in their mind. And they shut that entire experience off. They can't handle remembering this experience. And this is one of the reasons why they especially started using children, raising children into this program, because children are especially susceptible to this type of treatment. Well, when this repeats over and over and over, this separation, it's just like becoming a schizophrenic. The bad guys bang on the door and boom, you retort into this other consciousness. They leave, and then you can relax and be yourself again. You know, it's the only way that they could handle the trauma. And that's why you have movies like The Manchurian Candidate. They came out, and the guy gets a phone call, ring, ring, hello? The water is blue, or whatever they said it was. You know, the water is blue. The water is blue. Where's my gun? I got to go shoot somebody. You know, and this is real. That whatever it is clicks them. It's like the bang, bang, bang on the door. Right when they hear that bang, they switch. Here comes the repressed consciousness. This is the compartmentalization. I just thought that's important because, for one thing, some people may be victims of the same thing. It happens on a smaller scale everywhere. You know, it's like, yeah, Anyway, for thousands of millions of years, maybe, we've had a relationship with these plants. Maybe billions of years. We're so intricately connected with these plants that we cannot even think about how much. Now, what's the purpose of us being here and them being there? What's the purpose of all of a sudden the knowledge of what these plants are is kept away from us, and we have to struggle as we are with 10% of our brain going? What's the purpose of that? Maybe we'll be able to figure that out. But shamanism, through all the ancient cultures, have always had a leader or a healer, a priest, a magician, a sage, a shaman. If you look back in history, there was one guy in the tribe that knew about plants. And he was the one everybody went to for advice. He was the one that had the higher consciousness. He was the one that had the intuition, the insight to be able to find out maybe what was wrong with the other person, or knew a plant that might be able to help them. And the shamans talk to the plants. They talk to the plants, and the plants tell them, use this plant for this ailment. Strange phenomenon. All of a sudden we find out that, like the ancient Chinese herbalists, people always thought it was quackery. Gee, these ancient Chinese herbalists, boy, they're a bunch of quacks. You go in there and they just give you all kinds of roots, and they say, mix this up and drink this. Well, they're finding out now that suddenly the properties of the plants that they say are good for this, well, what do you know? They're good for this. Well, shamanism happened all around the world, and it happened ever since we can even think back. We can't even think back how far this tradition goes on. And each shaman in a local area would use the plants that were available to them. That's why you have shamans that would use psilocybin mushrooms in Central and South America. Well, they also used the amanita, which we'll get to here. But down in Arizona and areas around there, they use peyote. Well, the peyote is, we all have an idea, or most of us, I guess, in America know that the American Indian had to fight tooth and nail with the federal government to get them to use their own religious sacramental plant, which is, it's ridiculous. Now, suppose a white person, decides, hey, the American Indian, it's the way for me. I like the American Indian's philosophy. I like their ideas. Well, do you think you can experience their sacramental substance? Sure you can. But if they catch you, they'll throw you in jail for 10 years. And if they catch you with more than one experience, they could throw you in jail for the rest of your life. For what? For wanting to experience the native Indians' spirituality in the way that it's meant to be experienced. It's crazy. So anyway, we have thousands of years of tradition going on. Can I get the slide projector turned on, please? What I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through some of the different mythologies of the world. Is that my first slide? Wow. Oh yeah, that's right, it is. I forgot I had a different one. This mushroom is called the Amanita muscaria. This mushroom is so incredibly significant in our history that there's nothing else that's more significant and more important about any of the religions, and I'm going to show you why. I'm going to show you why, because it's the hidden. It is the secret behind it all. It's the hidden manna. It's the flesh of the god. And it's managed to keep itself intact, even though it was involved in the most ancient religious cultures, and people borrowed that information and created their own thing, changed all the names of the gods, worded it out a little bit different, changed it. Then people took that information and that religion and changed all the names and worded it out a little bit different. People took that information and changed it. Even though for thousands and thousands of years it's all been changed, this has remained intact. It's still there. But it's there under a veil. I'm going to try to lift the veil right now so you guys can see what this really has to do with religion. Now this is the expanded consciousness. Anybody has an idea what it might look like? Poof. Yeah. And remember what I just read about you will eat the celestial food. You will be in the presence of the gods. They will give you to eat of what they eat. Well, say hello to God. One of the most interesting ones that we have is the religion that's associated with Christmas. Now, the reason that I say the religion that's associated with Christmas is because it's not Christian. It's not Chinese. It's not Catholic or Pentecostal or Protestant. But this ritual is celebrated all over the world, everywhere. It's a little bit different. Santa Claus's name is a little bit different, but the basic traditions are really so similar. It's incredible. Where did our Christmas traditions come from? Well, everybody knows we bring a tree into the house. Put brightly colored packages underneath it. Well, the Amanita muscaria, right here, you'll notice these are pine needles. Why? Because this grows under pine trees. This mushroom grows in a symbiotic mycorrhizal relationship with these trees. The living organism is actually called mycelium, and it grows underground. It attaches itself to the roots of the trees, and when a spore hits it, a positively charged onto a negative filament of the mycelium, you get the fruit. This is actually the fruiting body, the fruit of the tree. If there's no pine tree, which by the way includes most coniferous trees, pines, cedar, spruce, larch, and then also in Europe it grows under the birch. But if there's no tree, there's no mushroom. And where does it grow? It grows right under the mushroom. Why? Because the mycelium is attached to the roots of the trees. Very strange. It doesn't grow anywhere where there's no pine trees. And it just happens to be red with white flecks, which happens to be the Christmas colors. Is that an accident? No, it's not an accident. Is it an accident that we bring into our houses pine trees and that we put presents underneath them to give each other for the representation of God's love to us? No, it's not an accident. Somehow it's managed to find itself into this tradition. Now, St. Nicholas, well, here's another one underneath the pine trees. Yeah. Well, this is a really nice one. It's a big one. Yeah. Same species as the other ones, yes. This is Amanita muscaria. Now notice too, I'll just show you right here since it's so obvious, that the colors are red and orange, and then with the white. But St. Nicholas, who we all consider now is Santa Claus, was adopted by Russia, the Russian church, as a sort of an antithesis or a counter guy to the local shaman. Because the Russian government understands what it's like to have a renegade priest out there. They understand what it's like to have free thought and direct access. So they created a guy that they used to replace the local shaman. In other words, they give us an icon. Here, have this guy. He's the icon now. And this is the great patron St. Nicholas, who in Russia is the patron saint of children. Now I'm going to show you in a little while this symbol here, which we could also consider as the celestial cross. But I'm going to show you how this is also related to the mushroom cap and the gills from the bottom. Only a few of them. It's like stylized. But notice the colors that I showed you just a minute ago? Look at the colors that he's wearing. Isn't that strange? Why would he happen to be wearing those colors? Well, in Russia, the Siberian shaman, they would come to your house to do a healing. They'd come to your house and do a healing, but how would they come to your house? It's traditional for the Russian shamans in the cold months to come not through the front door, not through a window, but come through an opening in the roof. Does that sound familiar? St. Nicholas comes through the from Siberia, comes through the opening of the roof and does a healing. Now the shamans go out and gather the mushrooms. They gather them in sacks. They go pick them, put them in the sacks, carry them along. They bring them with them when they come and do a healing in your house. Siberia also happens to be the natural native habitat for reindeer. Reindeer are real. They're not a mythological creature. Reindeer are real, and they are from Siberia. And the reindeer eat these mushrooms. They love them. If you're not quick enough and you go out there to pick them and you've waited too long, they're gone. They're bitten all the way down to the stalk. Reindeer are running off. Ha, 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 we got them. So here's the people think, God, those reindeer can fly. You know? They can fly. We know what happens when we eat it. We know it has to happen when they eat it. Also, when the people would go pick the mushrooms, they would hang them over the hearth of their fireplace to dry, exactly, with care. They'd string them up on a string and they'd hang them over the hearth because they need to be dried before you consume them. So here we have, now let's see, where are we so far? We have Santa Claus, okay, St. Nicholas from Siberia. The shamans gather the mushrooms in the sacks. They come into your house through an opening in the roof. You bring a pine tree into your house and you put red and white colored presents underneath it. How much farther can this go? Well, this is actually a German Santa here. Well, this guy looks really cool. He looks really cool. His black robe. Look at this magician's robe with the staff. And here he's got his bag. And what's he doing? Let's see. What is it? Santa's checking his list twice to find out who's naughty and nice. And then what? Then he tells his elves to go get you your presents, right? Tells them what to make for you. Well, this is sort of the German elf. Notice the colors again? He's reading his list. What's she got in her hand? A basket. What do most people gather mushrooms in? Baskets. Is there any other explanation why she would be wearing those colors and have that basket in her hand? And especially under consideration of what I've just told you about, no, there isn't. And there's people that know this and that have known this all throughout. That's why this artwork is done like this. This person is showing you in their artwork they know what they're talking about. Yet they didn't write a book on it. And you didn't hear it on CNN. President Clinton didn't come on and give a speech about it. Hey, you know why? Guess why we have a Christmas tree? Guess why we have Santa Claus? Guess where he came from? Guess where it came from? How many people have brought trees into their house and put gifts underneath it with absolutely no idea why they're doing it? None. Well, it's tradition. Sure, it's tradition. And that's why I started it here. It's because this is tradition. And it's great. You know, you think about Christmas religion as a religion. Here's your God. He's the red and white fleece beard wearing mushroom. That's where he is. How do you have access to Santa Claus? Well, you go under the tree and you eat the mushroom. How do you have access to God? Get out there under the tree and find the mushroom and eat it. Pretty interesting. So when we look at icons of all religions and icons that are prevalent throughout the world, and especially one like this that transcends religions, and the reason I say that is because it transcends all religious philosophy. It's celebrated in a different way all around the world, just a little bit different names, a little bit different ideas, but it's basically the same thing. And the whole philosophy is, and here's the interesting part, what is the morality of this religion? What does he do? He knows whether you're what? Whether you're naughty or nice. That's it. I mean, what happens when they ask Jesus, what's the greatest commandment? Love God. Second to that, treat thy neighbor as thyself. The golden rule. That's really all there is. Everything else is an elaboration on that and can be misconstrued. It's simple as that. Don't hurt other people. Don't do that. And everything else falls into place. Here's another neat little Christmas ornament with an elf. Pretty cute little guy. He says, "Here, take and eat. This is my body." Santa elf, Jesus elf, whatever you want to call him. Yeah, he's riding along in his reindeer. Yep. Merry Christmas. Now you know what it's all about. Some people knew what it's all about for a long time. Here's a neat little Christmas ornament. This is pretty obvious. Santa's in the mushroom. There he is. It does get pretty obvious once you know. This is a place setting from my friend in San Francisco, his name's Larry Stickney, former president of the San Francisco Mycological Society. I've always admired these plates. I've always admired this stuff ever since I first met him in the 70s and went over to his house for dinner. I've always just been in awe. There's that single setting. Now here's a whole place setting. He's an amazing guy. It's really neat stuff. I mean, it's from the 60s, and it's like, you can't. The Amanita muscaria. And you just can't get this stuff anymore. Now this is there's an interesting story behind this. I happened to be on the internet and going on to eBay auctions. Have you ever heard of this? If anybody's ever been on eBay, they know what I'm talking about. Well, somebody sent me an email and said, "Hey, there's a mushroom music box on there." And I said, "Oh, cool! I'll go check it out." You know, obviously they knew me pretty well. So I go on there and I find this thing, and it says on the bottom of it, "Very strange mushroom music box." Why is it strange? Because this music box plays jingle bells. Pretty strange. Wow. Actually, it's not strange at all to me. And I got outbid at the last second on it. I was so bummed out. You know, I didn't figure it'd go more than $30. What can I say? You know, it's only this big. You know, $30. So I blew that one. Otherwise, I'd probably have it here to show you. Here's another cute little mushroom ornament. A lot of these are pretty old. You know, they've. I don't think they make too many of them like that anymore. Maybe it's a conspiracy to stop them from doing it. I don't know. Here's an important work that came out. This is called The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross by John Allegro. Now, if anybody has heard of John Marco Allegro, he was the one that they called when they discovered the Dead Sea Scrolls. The world's leading philologist on the entire planet. He's from London, England. They call him up and they said, "Hey, we found these fragments of this stuff in this wall, and we think this might be the proof that Christianity is real." That's one thing about these Christians. They're always trying to prove that it's real. Let's prove that our religion is real. Well, so they called him up, and sure, he said he'd go over. So he went over and took a look, and he said, "Wow, you know, this is a significant discovery. There's lots of manuscripts here, lots of documents." And he decided that they made him an offer. The Israeli government made him an offer to become the curator of the Dead Sea Scrolls and the primary translator. So he did that for pretty much the rest of his life. But in the meantime, he came out with several books. Like one of them was called The Dead Sea Scrolls and the Christian Myth. That didn't make him very happy. Mixing Christianity and mythology just doesn't work for some people. But what really set people off was when he came out with this book. Because this book talks about the hidden, encoded words in Sumerian that mean mushroom and that are translated in the Bible as different things. And he went in there and he started discovering that. Once he found out that where the words were, he started understanding the mythological stories and the word play, and how a story can be given as a mythological story of the life of a mushroom, as strange as that seems. Well, when he came out with this book, it really set some people on end, and it really made a lot of people mad. And he sort of fell from grace in the eyes of a lot of people, as everybody knows that can happen when you're a scholar and you write a work that doesn't agree with the current dogma. Well, anyway, John Marco Allegro, what a monumental work this was. Made a lot of people think about things, and he proved it so well. One of the things that he said is that the entire symbol of the cross is a mushroom. That the death on the cross was never a literal death of a god, or a supposed god, or a gonna-be god, but that the death on the cross is symbolic for the experience, the shamanistic death experience that you have when you eat the mushroom. It's a literal destruction of self. It's a death experience. But the good thing is you get to wake up the next day. You get to die, and believe me, when you've done it, you know you've had the death experience. And it goes a ways to conquer this, but this whole symbol here. Now here we have these angels that are holding up cups that are catching the blood of Jesus. You know, catching his blood to drink it. Well, hey, interesting, but what does that mean? Obviously, you know, you're not going to drink the blood literally of a guy. It's just not going to happen. Also, you might notice here that they have halos around their heads. This also is a symbol for a mushroom. All these guys have it. These guys don't. And it's not just because they have a helmet, it's because they're not enlightened. It's because they have not had that experience of stepping through the veil. They have not had that multi-dimensional consciousness expansion that happens when you do that. But this is an obvious symbol, mushroom, and the cross was the ancient mushroom symbol. And you might recognize that it looks just like an ankh. It just doesn't have the top on it. And what does the ankh mean? The ankh means life. The ankh means waters, or waters of life. One of the states of the mushroom is the juice. The juice is the water. It's called the waters of life. Eat of the fruits of the tree of life. Drink of the waters of life. It's wordplay. It's metaphor. It's the same thing. It's all about the mushroom experience. Now, one of the easiest ones to understand, to really get in touch with what's going on, is the manna. John Allegro explained how manna means mushroom, and that's really not much of a leap to go there, really. Because if you think about the Israelites, and they were going out, walking through the desert for a long time, and probably in circles, 40 years of walking, you'd have to go in a lot of circles. Yeah. But they would eat the manna. It's what sustained them in the desert with nothing else to eat. And the manna, the dew would fall in the morning, and they'd go out and gather the manna, which was a small round thing that grew on the floor of the desert. Small round thing? Okay, well that's getting pretty good. But the thing is, too, is that if it was left there, it would breed worms and start to stink. Now, if anybody has ever had a mushroom outside their house, and they've watched it over the course of a couple days while it grew and then it eventually disintegrated back into nothing, what it does is it grows, it gets big, and then it gets hit by the heat. Worms start to grow inside of it, fly larvae. Then it disintegrates itself. Poof, it's gone. So the manna is called bread. The manna was called a fleshy substance. It grew off the dew of the desert floor. It was a small round thing, and it bred worms and stank. So just from the physical description alone, it's not that much of a leap to understand that manna meant mushroom. But then we talk about in the book of John how Jesus is describing the manna, and he says, I am the manna that came down from heaven. You eat me, you eat my flesh, and you live forever. Well, he's not, and then he says, I'm not talking about the manna that Moses ate in the desert. Those people are dead. But I'm talking about the manna that you eat and you live forever. Well, that's the way he's describing it. But one of the things is that the Ark of the Covenant was a great artifact, I'm sure. Pretty neat. How cool to have something like this. But this being an artifact is not where the value was. This was created to do a couple of things. It was created to carry the manna, and it was created to hide the manna from the other people. If you were to come, as you remember in Indiana Jones, about how the Nazis had the thing, and the Nazi guy goes, "Aha, I have the ark now. I will take the lid off and I will look and see." And he looks down and he burns up into him. It just disintegrates and falls and dies. Well, that was the mythology, that if you looked in the ark, it would kill you. But the reality was, it wasn't if you looked in the ark it would kill you. It was if you looked in the ark and you found out what the manna was, the Israelite priests would kill you. It was a secret. It was a highly guarded secret. Nobody's supposed to know what the manna is. And we'll get to that and figure out where that came from here too. But this was created to carry the manna. And that's its really important nature. Small, round, white thing. First stage of the mushroom here. Actually, this is a little bit bulbed out, but it's just a round rock at first. But even before this stage, and I don't have a picture to show that, but I wish I did. But what happens is, as the mushroom starts to grow, it pushes up the pine needles and it makes a mound. The primordial mound. In Egyptology, the entire universe was created from the primordial mound. From the primordial mound came the cosmic egg. When the cosmic egg cracked, the universe was created. These different stages I'm showing you here are so that you can understand the different stages and the different symbols that were used to describe this mushroom. One is a small rock. We can understand that. Rock, egg. This is pretty easy. Then it turns into a snake. Now we have a little snake that's shedding its skin. The snake is a symbol for the mushroom. The rock is a symbol for the mushroom. The egg is a symbol for the mushroom. And as it grows up, eventually, I think I've got a picture in here to show that. But here we have, see, another egg. It's also very phallic, but that's another story that I'll get to here in a little bit too. Well. We have the idea of the Last Supper. Now, if you notice, this is the Last Supper, and what's he going to do? He's going to feed them his flesh. Notice how he has the glow, but they don't yet. They don't yet, and that's what the Last Supper was all about. Once you've tasted the divine food, then you've awakened into enlightenment. That's when you have the glow. That's what this is a symbol of. It's a mushroom cap. These are the gills. And that's why it's done that way. Notice the color of it in there. But the whole Last Supper story is a story about consuming the mushroom before the death and the resurrection. Now, here's the other stage of it. If you see the gills under here, these really look like feathers. This isn't that good of a picture for that. Unfortunately, I didn't have one. But we have the egg stage, then the snake stage, and eventually we have the bird stage. Its feathers fly out. Its feathers come out like this. And we have all the white gills underneath that are symbolic for the feather. These are the wings. The T is the symbol for the bird. Also, the phoenix, which if you listen to the symbols I just said, the egg, the rock, the snake, the bird, the spore, ashes, you'll understand the whole symbolic story of the phoenix, which I'll get to here. Now here we have one of the symbolisms for Jesus is called, I am the fountain of living waters. Well, if Jesus is the fountain of living waters, is this what they're talking about? He's a fountain, and you can go look at it in the park. And if you're lucky, you might just happen to walk up and you'll find the Mother of God and God sitting in it because it's a good place to sit. No, that's not what it is. This is symbolism. This is a mushroom symbol, see? And fountains, meaning this is the fountain. This is the shape. It's the fountain of living waters. Out in the forest, you have a fountain. What does that mean? It means water bubbling up from the ground. Ponce de Leon was looking for the fountain of youth. What was he looking for? He was looking for the fountain that had the waters that make you immortal. I wonder how many mushrooms he kicked over before he realized that he wasn't going to find it. He obviously didn't know, he didn't understand what it was. And we'll talk about why it makes you immortal here in a little bit too. But this is symbolism. The fountain of living waters is just another symbol for the mushroom and a wordplay, which is, it's so prevalent, it's incredible. Goes on and on. Here's an ancient cathedral. Well, this is a pretty interesting doorway. Do you think that most people, when they go into this cathedral, see this? I don't know, actually. They all see it, but do they know what it is? You know? I mean, it's so obvious to me that here we have hidden symbolism. Nobody knows. Nobody recognizes what it is, but there it is. And once you know, and you start looking, I guarantee you, now that you know, you start studying your scripture, whatever religion it is that you're studying. You start looking into it, and all of a sudden now you're going to find mushrooms everywhere. You're going to be blown away, because this is what, it's the root base of all the stories. Even all the parables, you know. Don't cast your pearls before swine. Well, the pearl is symbolic for the small white round rock. Don't cast it before swine. Don't tell people that are unworthy about it. Well, the reason why it's a secret stems from this older stuff too, which we'll also get to. Now here we have, this is a 12th century painting. And here we have Jesus. Here we have the angels. And they're filling his cup. And this is fire here. I'm sorry it's a little fuzzy. But can you see this? This is a red mushroom. And the angels are dropping the red mushroom down into the cup. People know about this. People have known about it for a long time. Another thing is that remember how I said that they take the mushroom and they string it up on the hearth of the fireplace because it has to be dried? It has to be dried or it has to be cooked, one or the other, because there's a chemical reaction, an alchemical reaction that happens inside the mushroom that changes it into the substance that you want. You don't want to eat it fresh. So this is very popular in alchemical tradition, because alchemy is all about this too. And here we have the fire in the brandishing thing, showing that we're going to cook this. We cook it, we heat it up. Comes in here, here's the fire again. We have the fire in the cup. Mushroom, cup, prayer, angels. Note too the colors, which I'll show you in a little while. Green, red, yellow, blue, and white. Here we have Jesus in the sacramental tub. They say there, or the baptismal tub. They say there's two baptisms, one by water, it could be the waters of life, one by fire, the death or the cross. Here we have Jesus in both things, but the reason that I brought this picture along is to show you, look at this sarcophagus. Look at the way that thing looks. It looks remarkably similar to where it came from, its root idea, which is right up there in the pyramid, the sarcophagus in the king's chamber. Looks remarkably similar. Here we have a picture from a 13th century fresco from the Plain de Coralt in France that shows Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden with the Amanita muscaria mushrooms as the tree of knowledge. Surrounded by what? By the snake. The snake around the tree. Are you starting to get a grasp of the symbolism now and how it all ties together? And this is the great sin, isn't it? If Lloyd is right when he's talking about we only use 10% and we're not supposed to use the other 90%, then what's the great sin? Knowledge? Opening your mind to knowledge? Eating of the fruit of the tree of knowledge? Is this the great sin? Trying to wake up? Expanding consciousness? Well, we know it was the great sin in the Garden of Eden. That was Supposedly, it was the thing that condemned us all to eternal, dig in the dirt and become slaves and work, Can't be with God no more. Got to get out. Get out now. Go and dig and get in the dirt and become 10% people. Well, here we have this is St. John. Looks like a girl, but actually it's St. John, showing the Grail cup with a snake inside of it. Now, if you think about it, why would a sacramental chalice, the Grail cup, be depicted with the snake inside of it? This is why. It's common symbolism. It's telling you something. This picture is telling you something. All these paintings are trying to get through to your subconsciousness. And that's why these great artists, that's what they did. They would draw great works of art because great works of art point at something in the transcendent. Symbols point at something in the transcendent. The art comes from the transcendent into the physical realm to show you the transcendent. And that's why this painting is done in this way. And it's great to find something like this. You just go, wow, look. You can't tell a fundamentalist, see, look, the snake is in the cup. What? The snake is in the cup? No. The snake's the evil, bad, naughty guy. And this must be a Satan picture because he wouldn't obviously be drinking the bad, naughty, evil snake. Well, it just goes beyond all that. Well, here we have an 11th century painting showing Jesus, the Lord of the plants. Now that is pretty profound. This is from the 11th century. This is from the Canterbury Psalter. Amanita muscaria, obviously. The blue plant, blue mushroom, psilocybin. This is the color associated with psilocybin. This, I've determined, has become Syrian rue, or Paganum harmala. It has a chemical in it that's called telepathine. Telepathine, that's a good one. And this is the opium poppy. This is what I believe is an alchemical admixture picture for the original soma juice. This produces the quickening. This opens the third eye. This brings all of your past experiences into your current consciousness. And this produces the euphoria that allows you to be able to withstand the experience. And here's the 5 colors. Red, blue, yellow, white, or actually it's red and white, red, and green. The 5 colors. The other night we saw a wedding over here at the hotel. It was incredible. In the middle of the wedding, this dancer comes out and he's got these 5 discs. Green, yellow, red, blue, and white. Boom, 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 boom. He's spinning these discs and I go, wow, look. He's spinning 5 discs and they're the 5 colors. These colors, And Josh goes, wow, yeah, because he's read my page, Then all of a sudden this dancer puts these things on his head and he's spinning around and all of a sudden, poof, his clothes go out and he's a spinning mushroom. And Josh is going, look. And I'm going, wow. And then he raises it up above his head. Now he's got this gigantic mushroom cap spinning around his head. And he's a whirling dervish at a huge wedding ceremony, spitting within all these people who are sitting there just going, wow. Do you think they had any idea where all that symbolism came from? Do you think it's just a coincidence that he used those 5 colors? Do you think it's just a coincidence that his entire dance and his outfit was all a mushroom? It's not a coincidence. It's hidden symbolism. These people, just like people that bring a Christmas tree into their house that have no idea why they do it, go through all these rituals, all this ancient dogma, all this ceremony, and they don't have a clue why they're doing it. They don't know. And it surprises me, and it's funny to me. Now here we have the other end of it. Sometimes it just makes me shudder to think of the Catholic Church, but did I really say that? Can we edit that? Can we cut that out? I hate to step on anybody. I'll just step on everybody from now on. If there's anybody here after I'm done that I haven't offended, please tell me and I'll do my best. Yeah. Well, here's an obvious mushroom cup. Look at the striations that's coming out of this. It's an upside-down mushroom cap. This is right on the vestment of the Catholic Church. Again, symbolism that they have no idea what it means, really. This is a book that just came out in 1995 by a friend of mine who lives in Santa Cruz called Strange Fruit, Alchemy and Religion, The Hidden Truth. The reason that I show this book is because Clark is really the leading expert on alchemy that I know. He's the guy when it comes to alchemy. And he's traced all these ancient pictures, and he's looked at thousands and thousands and thousands of them, and he's got some of them in this book, but to talk to him is a real treat because the prima materia, the prime material, is the Amanita muscaria. And the gold of the alchemists. What were they trying to do? Why were they cooking these things in all these distillation processes and all this stuff? And why did Carl Jung come out and then say they weren't making real gold? Real gold has nothing to do with it. Alchemists could care less about making some gold. It was the charlatan alchemists that were the ones that were trying to make the gold and frying themselves with mercury and everything else. This is all symbolism. It's symbols, and the idea of alchemy, that, as Carl Jung told us, is a birth of the gold within. It's an awakening process. It's a perfection of the spirit, perfection of the soul. But this book is really good, and this one is still in print, and that's one of the main reasons. Oh, no, it isn't. I take that back. But there's still copies of this that are out there. You can still find this book. The other book I showed you is long out of print and not so easy to find. Again, we have, I don't know why I put this in there again. I must have been confused. Actually, these slides are not really in that good of a particular order. I really try to, when I do something like this, I always try to come up and go ad lib. You see, I have a couple notes, but I can't even read my own handwriting. So here again, we have a picture of Mary, and this is another great depiction of the upturned cap of the mushroom. Now here we have Jesus at the well, and he's telling the girl, "Hey, if you knew who I was, you would ask me to give you waters to drink." What is he talking about when he says that? Well, now we're going to get into a strange aspect of this. Or maybe I should wait. Maybe I shouldn't tell you at all. One of the strange properties of the Amanita muscaria is that just as in the drying process, it changes chemicals and turns into the right chemical rather than the one that you don't want to use, particularly. It's not that it's poison or bad for you, but the symptoms are a little bit of nausea and sweating. So as the chemical changes, you get the more effective producing experience chemicals rather than the sweating chemicals. Well, also as it passes through your body, now here again we have the alchemical tradition. Your body changes the substance, and it comes out in your urine. One of the ways when Gordon Wasson was describing why Amanita muscaria was the soma plant of the Rig Vedas is that the priests of the Vedas would piss off the roofs, and the people in the town would come out with their bowls to catch it and drink the piss. Now, why would they do that? Why in the world would some people want to drink the piss of the priests? I mean, I can understand somebody thinking, this is a holy man. I love this guy. He's a great guy. But I can't understand him following him around with a bowl. Hey, you're my favorite guy. Are you ready yet? Want a glass of water? Are you ready? You know, there's a real reason for this, and the reason is because the alchemical process of the body changes it again, and you pass out 85% of the active component in your urine. Well, I might mention, too, that the urine has no toxic chemicals in it. Strangely enough, none. Nothing toxic comes out in your urine. The stuff that you pass out that's toxic comes out in your sweat glands, comes out in your feces, comes out in your breath. The urine is absolutely sterile and pure, contains all sorts of healing properties. It contains things that actually, if you really knew about it, you would probably drink it every day because it would probably make you live forever anyway. It contains all of the hormones. It also happens to contain everything that your body knows you need. Unfortunately, you don't drink it. You piss it away, which is a good reason why we call it piss it away. All the healing elements that you have are really actually probably within yourself. And there's a great group of people that are saying this right now, urine therapists, and there's a conference that's happening in Germany this year about it. But that's not what I'm talking about, but what I'm talking about is the reason why I think that it's like that. Actually. I mean, they're talking about using it anyway, drinking it every day, drinking all of it, because of the healing properties of it. Well, I'm saying that it not only is it healing properties, but the reason that it is because it puts this through. And that's why the priests were following the guys around with the bowl, not because they liked the smell or because it tasted good. At least, not that I know. Yeah. This is a great one. I took this picture up in San Francisco mountains, and I was actually in a place where you're not supposed to be hunting mushrooms. But when I came back, I hadn't even developed these yet, and a friend of mine comes over and he says, "Hey man, there's a great party this weekend," and hands me a flyer for a rave. And on the flyer is the big picture with a big mushroom with a little mushroom, and it was like, wow. I go, man, I gotta get these developed. I took them down, and it was a cartoon of this, and it was so strange. I mean, synchronicities. Sometimes, like Jordan was talking about, sometimes strange things just happen. We don't know why, or we always can't understand why. This is a book called The Wondrous Mushroom, Mycolatry in Mesoamerica. This is Gordon Wasson's book that he put out dealing with the discovery of the psilocybe mushrooms in Central and South America. This is what I was telling you about the CIA when they got involved in it and tried to do all that. Now this is the book called Soma, Divine Mushroom of Immortality by R. Gordon Wasson, who was my friend that I mentioned, and that discovered that this mushroom and proved it out was the Soma, the plant god of India, of the Hindus, which is very significant because these religions all derived out of what we're looking at here. The most ancient civilization, the lost civilization, has these same symbols, as we're going to find out coming up. But I'm taking you kind of a backwards trek so that we can look at some of the other religions first. This is Gordon Wasson. Great guy. I wish he was around still these days. This is a temple called Angkor in Cambodia. This is called Angkor Wat. Now, this has the same structure and the same designs and the same granite carving, rock carving, bas reliefs. Same stuff that we're looking at here. In this ancient civilization, you can find in Angkor Wat, Cambodia. Now, an interesting thing is in this temple, is that this temple houses within its center courtyard what's called the ascension ritual, or the rite of passage, or the initiation process. It's a huge courtyard where as you make it around the courtyard, the initiate, through years of study, as they make it around the courtyard, and the bas reliefs on the walls tell you the story of the things that the initiate is learning. Eventually he gets to the center of the courtyard. When in the center of the courtyard, you eat of the fruit of the tree of life. Now, if you notice these right here, these strangely shaped pillars, can anybody who hasn't looked at my website tell me what they look like? Alan? Did you say pine trees? Yes. Absolutely. And it's funny that people haven't noticed this. But right in the central courtyard down here, because these have faces carved in the granite all the way around them too, but down here in the center of the courtyard, is the initiation that I was talking about. And in bas reliefs against the wall is this entire incredible story about producing the amrita, or the ambrosia, or the nectar. And as the story goes, Vishnu was called to save the world because the world was in trouble. And he consulted with the gods, and they said, well, you've got to find the elixir of immortality. You've got to produce the soma. And he said, well, how do I do that? And they gave him the recipe, and he does it. Well, what he does is he takes and he wraps the great serpent Vasuki around Mount Mandara, wraps it around him, around the mountain. And this is the mythology that's called the churning of the Milky Ocean. Now, all the Naga gods get on one side, all the demons get on one side of the snake. This happens to be the demon king, the demon side of the snake. And they start pulling the serpent, churning the mountain in the ocean. Now, this entire sequence and this entire idea is about the spiraling of the Milky Way galaxy. And we're thought that the milk bubbles float on top of the great abyss, or the watery abyss, or the great sea, or the ocean, or the universe, the entire everything. And the spiraling of the Milky Way galaxy is from the churning of the mountain in the production of the soma. Well, they pull it back and forth, and they pull it back and forth, and eventually some things start to pop out. And this depicts the great war between good and evil, and the entire concept of the serpent wrapped around the mountain, which is cut off here. The entire concept is the great war and the battle between the forces of good and evil as they churn the mountain and churn the galaxy to produce the soma, the ambrosia, to save the universe. Here's another picture of the great serpent. This is in Angkor Thom, and all these gods pulling, this is the demon side, all these demons pulling the serpent. There's 54 of them, and this is equinoctial, and the math and stuff that Graham Hancock did about this is really, it's right on. It's right on the money. This is a picture of the underside of the mushroom itself, and it looks like the sun with its rays coming out. Well, one of the forms of soma is the sun. He's called the sun. He's also called the moon, and if you look at the middle, it looks like the moon. The sun and the moon and the flesh. Well, anyway, as they're trying to produce the soma, they're churning the mountain. Things start to pop out, and one of the things that pops out as they get towards the end is there's actually 12 or 13 items that pop out. The last one is the soma, which I'll get to. Right before that, all this poison pops out. Well, Vishnu sees the poison pop out, and it's going to kill the entire universe and everybody in it. So he gobbles it all up and drinks it, and it turns his neck blue. Now, the blue neck is symbolic for psilocybin mushrooms again. As we look into the mythology of the mushrooms and the cows in India and all this stuff, it comes up, and I can't explain all of it to you, but as I go along, I'll bring up some of the things that are I think important. Well, the next thing to pop out is the soma, or the elixir of immortality, or the ambrosia, and one of the gods that sees it pop out before Vishnu does runs over and grabs it and runs away with it, and he goes and drinks it. Well, Vishnu sees that it's gone and sees what happens, and then so he goes and chases after him. Well, when he finds him, he'd already drank it, and he'd pissed it out and he put it in a bucket. So Vishnu finds him and kills him and finds the bucket and drinks the bucket. So here we have again, urine, drinking, symbolism, producing of the ambrosia, the churning of the Milky Ocean. All these symbols in Hinduism dealing with soma, ambrosia, the elixir of immortality, are the same thing. Here's a great picture of a mushroom. Here's the obvious. Well, let me go back. Oh, I already had it. Boy, I did that quick. How did I do that? Okay, see this? And now in their artistic representations and the symbolism, they use all the different stages and all the different ways that you can look at the mushroom. In other words, they look at the cap from this way and they look at it this way, and they look at it when it's small, look at it when it's under the ground, when it's under the bump, when it's an egg, when it's popping out. They come up with the eggs, they come up with the rock, they come up with the bird, they come up with all of these different symbols because of the different ways that the ancient people could look at the mushroom and see it. And probably they were looking at it when they were under the influence of it, so it had even all that much more meaning. But here's obviously the cap of the mushroom, and this entire depiction is these nymphs are praying for the phallus to join with the yoni for the act of creation of the universe to happen. And that's the symbolism behind it. Well, this is the separated cap and stem. Now in the mushroom, this is the vulva, this is the phallus. When these two are joined together and we have the mushroom like this, you have literally a picture of the genitals of a human being in the act of creation. Now we all know as a creator God, if you were to put it up like this, all that you're missing is what? The invisible God and the invisible goddess, the unseen. The ones we cannot see, yet they're there, and here's their sexual organs in the act of creation. It's a very interesting concept, and for me, just thinking about it like that, just it baffles my mind to think that here we have flesh that's a perfect picture of the act of sexual union in the act of creation, and all of this God mythology around it. It just makes me smile, actually. It cracks me up, you know. Wow, that's a trip. It's really neat. Here we have Hari Hari holding up a mushroom. Doesn't get much more obvious than this. You don't need to get into the word symbolism or anything else that all of these other scholars have done, really. You know, if you can just look at this and see, wow, there it is. You know. But the important thing is that not only is the symbolic representation and the artwork representation, not only is it there for us to obviously see, but the linguistic and the word definitions have also proven out. In other words, it's proven out through linguistics as well. Scholarly linguistics, we don't need that to see it in the artwork, but that's there as well. Here's another picture of a beautiful dancer. And as you can see, here again, and so many people I'm sure have looked at this and just didn't have a clue what this is, but what's she wearing on her head? It's a pine forest with the round-capped spotted mushrooms underneath. It's so obvious once you know what you're looking for. And it's beautiful. And the meaning just means all that much more. You know, you just go, wow, incredible. This is the Syrian rue, which grows all over around here. This is one of the 4 ingredients that I was talking about. And this is the one that contains telepathine. Here's some Buddhist monks meditating by the river. That's pretty normal. I don't see anything wrong with that. And it seems totally obvious to me what they're doing. Meditation, you see, in my realm of understanding, meditation is an attempt to get back to this state of consciousness without having the entheogen. Yet, when you experience the entheogen, if you understand the processes of meditation, it facilitates the entheogen. In other words, you really don't want to do the Amanita muscaria. You don't want to consume that if you don't know how to meditate. I just say that straight out, because it'll take you years and years of consciousness within yourself to try to figure out how to do what they've figured out thousands of years ago. In other words, not only is meditation an attempt to facilitate the consciousness that you achieve through the entheogens, which, by the way, entheogen means en, in, theo, meaning God, and gen, which is generate. Entheogen means the generation of God within. And that's what we call these plant substances now, and we have since the 50s, but yet they're just still always termed as drugs by those people that don't know. But not only is the idea of meditation a way to facilitate those states of consciousness without the entheogens, but those ways of meditation were developed by people that were doing these entheogens to make the experience attainable, to get control over the experience. The experience is so intense and so overwhelmingly complex. I mean, your mind is going 10,000 times, probably at least 1,000, probably 10,000 times its normal speed. And so to try to maintain a level of surface consciousness while in that state, it's virtually impossible. Because we basically have 3 states of consciousness. I mean, now bear with me here, because there's people who say that beyond there's 7 stages of heaven, 13 stages of heaven, there's 700 stages of consciousness. There's a lot of different philosophies about how many stages of consciousness there are, but I'm going to deal specifically with 3, and you'll see why. The first state of consciousness is what we are right here, what we think we are right here. Surface consciousness. In other words, what we've developed being incarnated into this physical body. Now, the reason that we call this surface consciousness is because this is where our train of thought goes. From one thought to the next thought to the next thought. It's like when you're sitting in contemplation and you're saying, okay, I'm going to get up and I'm going to go do my laundry. You're thinking at the same speed that you talk. Now, that's an interesting phenomenon. Why are you thinking at the same speed that you talk? Shouldn't you be able to think faster? Yes. Yet we have a constant train of thought because we're conditioned that way in our physical body. Why? Because this is how fast our mouth moves. And this is what we hear. So this puts us into the physical space-time continuum and creates this surface consciousness. This is not our real, true consciousness. What we think is us is not actually us, and we know that. We've heard that. We're a spiritual being trapped into a physical body. Sure. The next state of consciousness is your subconscious state or your dream conscious state, where you speed up, your consciousness speeds up roughly 10, maybe 20, maybe 100 times its normal speed. In other words, you can have a dream in 3 or 5 minutes as you're about to wake up that's a whole day experience, or maybe even a week. It's almost impossible to gauge, but we know you have REM, rapid eye movement. We know that your thought processes are much faster. You're quickened. And that's what the scriptures and what these things call the mushroom experience, is the quickening. Art Bell talks about the quickening. I called up Art Bell and tried to explain this to him, and he was, well, that sounds too scary to me. Goodbye. Blink. Yeah. Well, so anyway, then beyond that stage of consciousness, you have your real spiritual consciousness. This is the serpent that comes up your back. This is the Kundalini energy, the yoga. This is your true spiritual essence, which is asleep because we can't access it. Our true spiritual consciousness is asleep while we are awake. The only time we probably touch our true spiritual consciousness is when we really do go to sleep and we're not dreaming. And this may be our energizing period, and we may just do that because we have to contact that spiritual essence of ourselves at some time each day. Otherwise, we get run down. But now this consciousness speeds up even more, way more than our subconscious dream state consciousness. And what this mushroom does is it wakes that up into you. The serpent comes up your spine and out your forehead. Your energy wakes up, your spirit wakes up into the realm of your surface consciousness. Pow! Now all of a sudden you're thinking at 1,000 times its normal speed. That's why you need to know how to meditate. because you need to allow those thoughts to pass through you and over you. You need to have that still point. You need to maintain that state of consciousness, the awareness of self, yet not follow along with all your little thought processes. That's why they tell you, silence the mind. You don't really have to silence the mind. You just allow your thoughts to pass through you and over you, and allow yourself to wake up to your spiritual consciousness without freaking out. And a lot of people, when they do it and they don't know what they're doing, they take it and their thought processes speed up and they wake up and they just, pow, they're out cold, wake up next day, wow, that was great, I didn't remember anything, you know. It's all a matter of being able to control the experience, and that's why they develop these ideas and these concepts of meditation, is so that you can awaken up your spiritual existence into your surface consciousness mind without it overwhelming you. Here's a Tibetan Buddhist meditation implement in the stupa, the mushroom with the fire coming out the top. Isn't that a great one? I really like that. Again, we have the mushrooms with the flaky warts on top. Another really neat Tibetan Buddhist place, or is this? I think it is Tibetan. Oh, yeah, Burma, that's right. Absolutely. Thank you, Simon. I just put this one in there to show you, gee, it kind of looks like it. Well, there it is. There it is. It's not by accident. It's not by accident this stuff is designed like this. It's not by accident. It's hidden. Within all of the religions, it's hidden. It's under there. All you have to do is study it, and it opens up to you, and you find it. Then you really understand what it's talking about. The hidden key. Here's a Tibetan Buddhist statue, or not statue, but a Thangka painting of Chenrezig. This is the 1,000-armed Buddha, the 1,000-armed Kuan Yin. Notice the gills coming out. Notice the arms coming out. See the symbolic similarities here? It happens all over. Again, same idea, same concept. Same concept. Am I going in the right direction? No, I'm going right. Here's another depiction of the mandala, which is also symbolic of the mushroom cap, with its gills and its separate different stages of incarnation. Now, one of the things that the Eastern tradition teaches us about is reincarnation. And people reincarnate and reincarnate and reincarnate until they learn the things that they really need to know, and then they ascend. Well, reincarnation is, in the Tibetan tradition, this is Yama. This is the Lord of Samsara, which is the reincarnation. All of the physical world is depicted on this disc. Yama protects this disc Yama protects these people from these people going there. These are the heavenly realms. These are the higher realms of consciousness. Yama protects these people from these crazy nuts in samsara getting out and going there. And that's really what the idea of reincarnation is. You have to keep coming back until you learn the things that you need to know. Why? Because these people over here don't want a bunch of crazy, sadistic idiots that don't have a clue what's going on with how to deal with other human beings, or anybody else for that matter. They don't want them in their realm. So they don't go there. So here we are here. Now there's other beings who come from here. They're called bodhisattva, who come from this realm into this realm just to bring us beings into that realm, to teach us what those things are that we need to know to get out of this and go into that. But until then, we're stuck here in samsara. We're stuck in the wheel of reincarnation in the physical realm. And you can become a god. The middle top one is the realm of the gods. So this is all physical incarnation, the god realm. I mean, this would be likened to the Pharaoh. You're incarnated into a world where they say, you are God, and I am God. Everybody does what I say. Or you're the King of England, you know. What are you going to do with that? Well, a lot of those guys just tortured people and did all kinds of stupid crap. What are these people doing? You know, why? I don't understand it. But this This is a great picture. I put this on there because you can see that one of the interesting concepts of the mushroom cap itself is the lake of fire with burning brimstone. You see the lake of fire? See the brimstone floating? It's heaven and hell. It's the heavens and it's the abyss. It's all, everything, all incarnation, all realms of the multidimensional consciousness as well. Here's a picture of Mithra. Mithra was born from the stone, or sometimes they say born from the egg. Strangely enough, the egg and the stone are interchangeable. And look what he's got wrapped around him here. The snake. Well, Mithra the god was born of the snake. He also happens to have the lion's head in this one, which is really interesting. And the wings, the feathers. Mithraism was all pre-Christianity. Here's the egg. Here's the rock, the small stone as he was born out of. Here's another picture. Here's Mithra with this stone is wrapped by the snake in this one. This is an isolation tank that was built about 1965. This is where people would do sensory deprivation to unlock the outer consciousness of the mind. If you've ever seen the book, or not the book, but the movie Altered States, that was Amanita Muscaria experiences using an isolation tank. The reason they would do that is because when you get in a tank filled with salt water in a room where all sound was gone, you cut off your senses, you cut off your seeing, you cut off your hearing, you cut off your sense of taste and smell and touch. All of a sudden, once your five senses are gone, you're able to experience something else. You're able to experience what we call as the sixth sense, or your other senses. Hakim says, and many other religions say, that there are 360 senses that we have. The only reason that we can't use them is because we don't know the name of them. Like Hakim said, the judge asks you, who did this? And you say, well, that guy did it. And he asks you, how do you know? You say, well, my sixth sense tells me that. Well, which one of the sixth sense? Is it number 6 or is it number 360 or somewhere there between? Here again, we talk about the 10% of the brain we're using and the ability to access the rest of it. Well, this is one of the ways that they try to access the rest of it. Wake it up. This is a Mithraic. This is called a Mithraeum. These are tanks along the side, where the initiates in the rituals would lay down in the tanks with salt water, strangely enough, and they would consume the holy meal. The holy meal, they would eat the holy meal, then they would lay down in the isolation tanks, and they would have a communal experience. And one of the interesting things about the Amanita Muscaria is when more than one person eats it, you all have the same experience. All of a sudden, there's no boundaries between me and you. There's no difference between me and you. We have a communal experience. It's like this huge communal thing, this cosmic external consciousness that's like, what do they call it, the communal consciousness, or the consciousness of all, where all are one, but yet we're individuals in the small part of one, without trying to get too much into it right there. But this is, anybody ever see the movie Stargate? See what this is? This is from a Mithraeum. This is the Stargate. These symbols around the Stargate are the signs of the zodiac. They would eat the magical food, and when they ate the magic food, they could go through the Stargate and would leave their body and go into the stars. Same thing they did in Egypt, in the rituals, and the ceremonies, and the initiation rites. This is a Mithraic Stargate. And I think this is where they got that concept from. I've never seen it written anywhere, but when I came across this, I went, well, there's the Stargate. Sure enough, as I started researching it, that's exactly what it is. It's called the Mithraic Stargate. This is a real nice picture, so I included it. I have a lot of extra pictures of that. Here we go. Now are you starting to get a concept of this? Are you starting to understand what I mean by this? Through all of these other religious ideas who came after Egypt, we have hidden within these these religions, these concepts of these mushrooms that people were taking and opening their mind and accessing their higher states of consciousness. Now here we are back at the original, and if you notice, we have the same symbols in the original that I talked about all along: the snake, the bird, the egg, the cow. Same symbols are there. This is a book called The Sacred Mushroom by Andrija Puharich. Andrija Puharich is one of the most respected men in the field of psychic and paranormal, out-of-body, that's ever been. This is called The Key to the Door of Eternity. This is all about Egypt and Egyptology. Well, I guess, yeah, that's what they called it back then. I won't call it that anymore, thanks to brilliant friends that I know that have shown me the new light. I really feel silly for not spending a lot more time understanding this now. But you know what? The minute that you think you've really, got a good grasp on everything, sometimes you decide, wow, like Jordan said, the more I know, the more I realize I don't know. And I'm really happy, really, really happy now that I studied all that other crap before. I'm real happy that I studied all that stuff before, because now I've got the big thing left. And I'm still alive, and I still have years ahead to do it. Now I can do this. And I have all that stuff that I already know. Otherwise, if I would have started studying on this, I probably never would have gone and studied any of that. Ever. Why? Why do it? And now I have a good concept of that already. Stuff under my belt. Now I step forward and go study commit. This is the way to go. This is the Jed pillar. I looked at this, and you can tell what I thought, right? It's pretty easy to see for me what this is. And once you find out the stories behind it, what the pillar is and what it symbolizes and where it comes from, there we go again. And you understand that how it gets translated into the next religions after, and religion after that, and religion after that. Well, the Jed pillar, it's symbolic for Osiris. When he gets killed by Set, he's dismembered, and his body parts are put all over the place. Well, they couldn't find his phallus. Well, that's what this is a symbol for. Well, another story says that Osiris is killed by Set, and his body is put into a coffin and floated down the Nile. Well, eventually, when it gets to the edge of the Nile, it goes into the Mediterranean, and it floats along the shore, touching different areas. And eventually it winds up in Lebanon, and it grows up as a cedar. You caught that, didn't you? Cedar. This doesn't look like a cedar, does it? Have you ever seen a cedar? But what grows under the cedar? Remember? Yeah. So it's really it's a great story, and it's a great jump, and it's a great thing to see this and go, hey, there's a cedar. Yeah, that's obviously a cedar. Well, I have to admit that my understanding of chematology, or even my understanding of what used to be termed of Egyptology, is fairly limited. But I think in the next 10 or 20 years, I'll know at least more than I know now. But when I see things like this, it's like, you see this and you suspect it, and then you hear the mythology behind it, and you go, wow, well, there's a whole story in Hinduism where Rudra, who is the red god, comes into a village, and he's very beautiful and red, and all the women love him. They say, wow, look at Rudra, he's red and he's beautiful. And so he comes into the village, and he draws all the girls of the village out into the forest. And all the girls of the village come out into the forest, and Rudra has sex with all of them. They all become pregnant. Well, all of the men of the village are pretty pissed off about this. They didn't like that too much, so they all banded together and ran out into the forest and hunted down Rudra. And what they do, they chopped off his penis. Well, as Rudra's revenge, he said, I will be back, and I will be back all the time. And the women will always be able to come out in the forest and find me. And his red penis grows in the forest every season. And this is a story in Hinduism, and it's only one of many, many stories dealing with the phallus of the god and the mushroom being the phallus of the god. Here it is again. You know, it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Well, I think that chematology is the first, and it's the original, it's the source. The phallus of Rudra, the phallus of Osiris, the great canopy of the sky. Here again we have symbolism of the wings, the jed pillar, the disc. Remember how I showed you all the pictures of the disc? It's a very common thing for this to be depicted as the mushroom cap. It's also the sun, which was another idea for it. So here we have, and the snakes too. See, the serpents. You see how all these symbolisms came out, and eventually through the years and through thousands of years and many different religions all became associated with that? Yes. 5 minutes? Oh my gosh. Here's this again. Wow. Can I get through it? Here's the scarab beetle. I like this association. Remember how I showed you the Chemrizi, the thousand-armed Kuan Yin? Scarab beetle. It's just so obvious to me. Yes. Okay. Okay. Hey, what's this guy doing here now? Oh, I came back to him so I could show you this again. So now that we've been through a lot of that, you can see where I say that it's also a Celtic symbol, and there's a lot of other stuff, but I haven't had a chance to get into, so you'll just have to take my word for it. That's a mushroom symbol. You can hunt it out yourself and find it. Here it is in Egypt. Here we have, remember the angels that were giving Jesus the mushroom that was going down into the cup with the fire coming out of it? Well, here we have the Egyptians doing the same thing, this cooking process. This is step one in the depiction. Oh, I put this in here again just to make sure you knew, in case I didn't describe it to you like I just did. Okay, here we have part one. Step one, got to have the heat, got to have the fire, got to cook it up, because you have to change the process of it. The alchemical process has to change. Part two, take it out of the fire, put it in all the cups. Going to make it ready for everybody to drink. Part three, pour it in the cup, drink it. Yep. The fruit of the tree of life, the waters of life. Isolation tank again, because there we have the second part, or the second understanding of it. The third understanding of it goes through all the religions. There we have it too. And we know that they did initiations in the king's chamber, the pyramid. What did they do? They did initiations where the priest would induce what they called a death-like state. And remember, I told you about the death-like state, and what the mushroom experience is a death-like experience. Well, the priests are the ones that would do that, which is this symbol. As you've seen this a couple times now, this is the symbol for priest. This is the water, picture of the water of life being poured out. The priest is the one who knows and understands the true nature of the waters of life and can pour them out, meaning give them to you. Give to you the true nature and the understanding of the waters of life. It's simple. That's what a priest should do. Not tell you, eat this cracker and go away and bring us some more money next Sunday when you come down. You know? Then we have this symbol. Oh boy, that's not much of a head. That's kind of funky looking. Oh, well, this will just give you an idea. This is the age that we're going into, the age of Aquarius. This is the water bearer. But he's not just pouring out the water of life, which is the same thing that we have in this, because this is a person, this is the knees. The Aquarian age is pouring out the waters of life into the earth. The priest is giving the knowledge of the waters of life into the earth, and this is the birth of the new age. This is the reality of the difference between the age of Pisces, the age of Aries, the age of the bull, where we were ruled by animals. Now all of a sudden we come into an age where the knowledge and the true understanding of the nature of the waters of life comes into the planet. Direct communion, direct contact. Never before has this happened. It's always been hidden. Hakim talked about Nut and the stages of the sun. We go into the stage of Amen, where, what? The sun is swallowed and we go into a period of darkness. Now all of a sudden, what's happening? The sun is going to be born again. We come into a stage of light. This is our stage of light, the age of light and knowledge and understanding, and the age of direct communion and access to what we can consider God. I know I got a boogie here. Again, isolation tank. Again, Stargate. This is the Stargate up here. I think what Chris is talking about, I think is a big part of that. Jed pillar, snake, disc, Ankh. Ankh is water, is life, waters of life. I have a whole nother understanding now. That didn't come through very good. The manna. I'm just kind of going back through some of these things. It's like Moses having the snakes on the staffs. This is the power. This is the understanding. This is the wielding of the power. This is how the gods did what they did. Here's the phoenix, finally. Now, this phoenix starts out as an egg, or starts out as a piece of ash, which is the spore, turns into the egg, turns into the snake, turns into the bird, raises its wings, is heated by the heat, burns up, disintegrates, turns into ashes, and repeats the cycle. Comes up as the egg, turns into the snake, goes into the bird, raises its wings. That's the mythology of the phoenix. Is as simple as that, and as beautiful as that. As we go into the other realms of consciousness, one thing that we have to understand is that what your cosmology and your understanding and your concepts of self and your own ideas play everything when you wake up your spiritual entity into your surface consciousness. The reason I put Wilhelm Reich's book here, Ether, God, and Devil, Cosmic Superimposition, is to let you understand that the dogma of religion is more damaging to you spiritually than you can possibly comprehend. When you step through that door into the multidimensionality, when you wake up that spiritual being into yourself, those dogmas create conflict. Those false ideas that sex is wrong, that sex is bad. When you're young and they tell you, whack, don't touch your pee-pee, what do you think you're doing? Don't do this, don't do that, you bad kid, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff, all this baggage that we create in our lives, we don't create it, but it's created for us. All this baggage is the stuff that you need to get rid of when you go into this multidimensional consciousness aspect. And that's why I put it there, because like this guy with the CIA that went in with Gordon Wasson, like this guy who had in his ulterior motives worked for the CIA and was trying to control other people's minds, he had a bad trip. And everybody, when they die, will see what they really are, and they'll see all the dogma heaped upon themselves, and they're forced to come back into another body until you've gotten rid of that, until you understand where that is. That's why these religions, what I said is, don't hurt other people. That's the law. That is the law. All the other stuff is bull. And especially if it goes against that concept. And when they contrive and do all kinds of things to manipulate things to where they look bad and they're not really bad, you know, it's bad. And Wilhelm Reich talks about Ether, God, and Devil, cosmic superimposition. What happens to you when you're forced into a belief system, and all of a sudden your beliefs are going against the true nature of reality. He has another book that's called The Mass Psychology of Fascism. This talks about the people that want to do nothing but control other people. And it talks about what happens to you when you fall under that type of a dictatorship or rulership. He has another one that's called Children of the Future, and another one that's called The Sexual Revolution. And these things deal with the spirit of the human being and what happens when a child is born into the world and is sexually repressed, sexually slapped down, and what happens and how sadistic behavior becomes so prevalent in our society, and how it is this sex negative society that causes this frustration, that causes these people to be so unhappy with life and unhappy with themselves. It's like when we came here to Egypt, we went over to a wedding over here, and we see a big wall right down the middle of the road and a huge party going on, but all the girls are on one side and all the guys are on the other side. The girls are all covered up with stuff. You can't even see what they look like, so I'm going, what am I here for? I wasn't here for that anyway, but it was great. It was really, really a wonderful feeling. But at the same time, I see this repression happening and the genital mutilation that happens around here. This kind of stuff is what is bringing about this God cosmic superimposition that happens. See, this is what I'm talking about. When you leave your body, you go multidimensionally, you step through. All of a sudden, you're by this guy who's weighing your heart against a feather. Does your heart weigh the same as a feather? This is the way that they say that you go on, that you live, that you survive, that you don't get killed of the second death. Well, the way to make your heart as light as a feather is to strip the dogma away. And each time that you do this death experience, you see this. And you strip this dogma away. It takes several times. It takes several times of the experience of life to reach the stage to where you can leave the state of samsara and you're ready to go up into those higher realms. You can't go there if you don't. So what I'm talking about is this death experience quickens your evolutionary process. The understanding of what's the difference between dogma and truth is what makes the difference of whether your heart weighs more than a feather or not. Wasan. Plants. Now I'm really quickening it up here. The 5 admixture components of the original soma: amanita, psilocybin, Syrian rue, and opiates. 5 colors: green, yellow, blue, red, white. 5 colors: green, yellow, red, blue, and white. That was the Eastern Star. Red, yellow, green, blue, and white. Again, it's a recurring theme. And here's the people that take the initiation rites, use them for their own, but don't tell you the truth. Why do you think they have a coffin in their initiation rituals? It's because they simulate the death experience. They say, okay, lay down in this, now let's pretend you're dying. Now all of a sudden, abracazam, you're reborn. Initiation's done, congratulations, you're at stage 3. Well, it's all copying the reality of this knowledge right here. The knowledge of the pyramids and the mushroom and the out-of-body consciousness. And I just barely have been able to just get going into this. I must have... Here's our choice. This is Alpha. This is Omega, the beginning and the end. And this is the end of my lecture. So thank you guys very much.